Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by James and Callum. How you going, guys?
Good.
Good. We're finally talking about Severance this week.
Yes.
Oh my
okay.
gosh.
So, for listeners, for the last how long have we been back since our long hiatus? 7 weeks.
Yeah, six.
I think 7 weeks.
No, we've done 5 episodes.
Yeah, but we skipped 2 weeks.
Yeah,
because
that's right. So it's been a while.
So I think it's been 6 or 7 weeks, and pretty much every episode we've been hinting at. Oh, we'll talk about this next week. Oh, Christopher Walken, don't worry, he's coming up next week. John Turturro, he's great. We'll talk about him next week.
Yeah.
Apple TV Plus, next week. Sorry, guys. And we never got round to it. It's the one thing we wanted to talk about for the last 6 weeks.
It's the show that's got us the most excited this year. Yeah.
Severance on Apple TV Plus. This will be, I think, if you guys agree, probably our most positive review in years.
Yeah, legit. Possibly.
I don't think there's not one negative thing we have to say about this show.
No, not really. But there's not enough of it.
The only negative thing is that we have to wait for season 2.
Yeah, the only negative thing is that we have to wait a whole year for more. So,
Where to start?
Yeah, so first thing I want to say, for listeners who haven't seen Severance, it's hard to describe
Without spoilers.
But the one thing I want to say is, if you haven't seen the show, I think it's the best new show in years.
Yeah, it makes me as excited as
it's
the Twin
the best
Peaks reveal did.
It's the best debut season
Yeah.
I can think of in the
That's
last
true,
few
yeah.
years.
And I'm glad it's where it is and not on Netflix.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And I was trying to describe it to someone, and I've heard it described this way online. It's like Lost during the prime Lost years, when everyone was talking about it. When it was like the water cooler show, where did you see Lost last night? And all the theories online, and even on the radio,
people talking about
was like,
it permeated everything. Yeah.
Except now we're so far removed from that. We're in the streaming internet age, where it's just you don't have water cooler shows because everyone watches different shows and has different.
One of my
streaming services.
co-workers on Monday, yesterday,
Yeah.
said to me, "Oh, I watched Severance over the weekend. Have you seen it?" And I was like, "I have
Best
thoughts,
friends,
sir."
best
And I'm
friends.
like, "Yes." We talk about TV occasionally, but he's like, "I watched Severance. It was so good. Have you seen it?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "So there is water cooler talk,
Yeah, but
that
my
makes
point
common.
is-
That means
Yeah.
the show has to be that good."
Because
Yeah.
water cooler
My
shows
point
used to
is-
bring everybody together.
Yeah, and because there were only a few
TV
channels and a
channels, yeah.
few
Yeah.
good shows, it's but it feels like that, but less people are watching it.
Yeah.
But it has a dedicated, obviously,
Following, yeah.
audience, and now there's an online community, which is different than it was when Lost started 15 or so years ago. But that's what I'm trying to explain to listeners who haven't seen Severance. It's
It gets people talking.
it's you have to watch this show, and not in the way of oh, you haven't seen Game of Thrones. It's I'm not talking. You have to watch it because it is, one, excellent on every level,
Yeah.
and two, it has the feeling of something special, when Lost first
It has that
debuted.
spark to it. It's not
Yeah.
just another show.
It's not eye candy. It makes you think.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's good. It's well written, well executed, but
Yeah.
it doesn't hold your hand in the best way possible.
No, it's the most cryptic. You have to see all the clues without being frustrating or letting you down at all.
Yeah.
And it also has one of the best love stories in recent years.
Well, yeah.
We'll get there. Yeah.
We'll get there.
So this is all to say, after all that preamble,
Please watch it.
is if you haven't seen Severance, please, by any means necessary, watch the show before listening to this episode.
Can't recommend it highly enough, because it's best to. I know some people don't mind being spoiled, but this is the kind of show where the magic is discovering it as you go.
Yeah, the whole point of the show is it's mysterious. It's what does this corporation do? Whatever.
Who are these people? Yeah.
Yeah.
What are they hiding?
Yeah. I guess we should say the show is about a company who
A company working on...
They're working on some sort of secret project that no one knows what it is. and
Even the
people,
employees can't
Yeah.
know about it when they leave.
Yeah, and so people who work there have a procedure done where they forget everything that happens at work as soon as they leave, and then when they get back to work, they remember they're supposed to be at work, and so
That's
your
right.
in-work self and your out-work self are two different
It's a
things.
sounds
splitting
like
of consciousness.
Which sounds like a nightmare, right? I would not.
I wouldn't. Yeah,
I wouldn't
want
do it.
done because you don't know what they're doing to you there. But
No.
that's part of the show.
It's part of the show, but also the fact that there'd be one half of my consciousness that only ever experiences work.
yeah.
I would hate
that's
that.
hell.
That's
literal
literal
and
hell.
it kind of the reason it's so interesting is it's almost like a Philip K. Dick story, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the way it takes this idea, but then it delves into the psychological aspects where like you might come to work and you'll have PTSD or like you might have some stress, you might come into work feeling mad or
Yeah.
like have marks on your body or whatever, but you won't know why. And it's the same
Exactly.
reason when you leave work.
Mm.
Something could happen to you and you'll be like, I don't know, but you'll find a little letter
Yeah,
and it'll have,
with a
I
little gift
burned myself
card.
at work
Yeah,
today.
yeah.
And there's like a $20 gift card.
but-
So it's stuff like
but
that. It's like
before-
that.
yeah,
You
before
don't
we-
know. There's like a wall between consciousness
Yeah.
and you don't understand what happens on either side of it.
Before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Let's take it back to the beginning.
Yeah, no, I just want to say, if you haven't seen Severance, you need to watch it now. Pause this episode, drop everything, stop watching all other shows, doesn't matter how good it is. I don't care whether you subscribe to Apple TV Plus or not, you need to watch Severance, please, before you listen to this review, because we're going to spoil everything in the first season, and some people don't care about spoilers, but you
This
don't
is
want
an
to get
exception.
spoiled
It's
for
not
this
one of
show.
those. This isn't one of those shows
And
where you can be
even-
like, "Oh, whatever, the spoilers fine."
Yeah.
It's like, no, go in blind.
And
please.
even if you don't like what we just said about the concept of the show, just watch it
Give it a
anyway
go, yeah.
because it's worth. Trust us, it is worth it. Now,
Go watch it. We'll
go
wait.
watch it. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Spoiler alert
okay,
for season
quickly-
1 of Severance.
quickly, let's take it back to the beginning.
Yeah.
When Apple TV first launched, it was going to be a disaster.
Oh yeah.
Because when they first, we have a bit extra time tonight, hopefully, so
Yeah,
we can
Oh, okay.
explore a little
Yeah,
bit,
good.
So, when Apple TV first launched, it was, it's going to be family friendly, and it's going to
Yeah.
be
It
this
was
and
like
that,
this is a joke.
and it was going to be terrible.
Yeah.
But Apple TV has slowly turned into what we want out of basically HBO. It's what we wanted Netflix to become,
Yeah, like
almost.
pretty much. Yeah, like they started off as like no one's going to subscribe to this garbage. It's going to be crap. And then we're a few years on, and there's so many streaming services and so much content.
So we didn't really pay that
And-
much attention to
Yeah,
it.
and honestly, they have some of the best shows. They've got
Yeah.
Ted Lasso.
Slow Horses is apparently good.
I've
I
heard
haven't
that's
seen
good.
it.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's Severance.
Severance. What else?
Um,
I like that Servant show. Have you seen
Servant, the M Night Shyamalan Ding Dong
Yeah,
show.
I actually
yes.
like that show. So they got some good stuff. There's other stuff too that I'm forgetting.
Oh yeah,
But yeah, like, and they seem to be more selective in terms of.
it's quality over quantity.
Yes.
It's Netflix meets HBO essentially. It's it's the sort of
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, it's
It's like quality of HBO, but yeah, more of a.
more worldwide than HBO, if that makes sense. More
Yeah.
easily accessible.
Yeah.
To an extent.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to pay for Foxtel or
Yeah.
jump in hoops just to get to the
Yeah.
content. It's I guess their free trials are pretty fair too as well. It's they don't make it hard to subscribe for the Apple TV Plus, and yeah, the content is amazing, and we ignored it for years.
Yeah, well, this show hopefully will get people to notice.
Yeah.
And yeah, hopefully it'll. Because, we've talked about the last couple episodes about how the decline of Netflix, if you can say that.
The fall.
Yeah, it's just like Apple TV Plus is.
Asserting itself as a
Yeah.
quiet powerhouse.
Exactly.
Dancing on in,
Yeah.
being like, you got a spot missing.
Yeah. You didn't take us seriously at first.
Yeah.
You thought Ted Lasso was good? Oh, yeah. Bam, Severance. So, Severance it was created by a guy named Dan Erickson, who he's the success story behind this, because the whole thing about him was that he was like a struggling writer. He was like working for Uber or something, and he submitted the script for Severance to Ben Stiller's production company, and Ben Stiller liked it, and they had a meeting, and together they developed and, you know, polished the show until it became what it is. And so Ben Stiller, who obviously when you say that name, most people automatically think of comedy.
Yeah.
Whereas I tell everyone he's actually a really good director.
Yeah.
And also, if you want to see something he's done recently that's more serious as a director, you should watch Escape from Dannemora. He did that miniseries with Paul Dano a few years ago, which is like he directed every episode, and it's like a serious. I can't remember what network it was on. I don't think it was HBO.
I'll look it up.
But yeah. So, and now this show, him and Ben Stiller and Dan Erickson kind of together made this show.
Yeah.
Along with everyone else, of course. I think, how many episodes of Severance? There was 9 episodes. I think Ben Stiller directed 6 of them.
Something like
that. So he's a major creative force in the show.
Showtime.
Oh, yeah. Escape from Dannemora was on Showtime. Yeah. That was good. Anyway.
Yeah, Ben Stiller directed.
Yeah, so, like, there's that aspect of it. And, like, you know, like there are shows we watch and we're like, we're not sure if the people making them really know what they're doing.
There's a cohesive plan, yeah.
Yeah. And this is one of the only shows I can think of where I'm like, they know
They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. And of course, that's not true about anything because no one can be 100% sure, especially with TV shows.
But they definitely provide like a united aesthetic. It's like it's the same world. And I know the trick of being a good showrunner, of course, is managing the different directors and the different artists involved to make it seem one cohesive product.
Yeah.
But this truly feels like all the episodes is pieces of one giant whole.
Because, you know, we talked about so many times about how now TV shows are just like long movies.
Yeah.
But most TV shows, especially the ones we like to complain about, they still feel kind of like janky and like uneven. Whereas this one feels, it's just a cohesive, nice, rounded package.
And it's so incredibly well written. If you asked me to name my favorite character in the show, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, every scene is essential. There's no fat on it.
I think we talked about this before. You know a TV show or movie is good when you can just pluck out any one character and be like, you can make a whole show about that like, one person, or I would like to see that one person.
Legitimately, if someone said to me, who's your favorite character in Severance, I'd be like, I don't know. I'd be like, it could be Dylan, it could be Irving, it could be Mark, it could be Helly.
It like rotates.
It's probably Milchick.
He's great.
But like, I wouldn't know.
Yeah, it's like, it just rotates depending on how you're feeling or depending on what they're doing. Yeah.
Especially because like when you get character development from a specific character, you empathize with everyone so much because all of the characters feel like they're genuine human beings. So like the emotional performances they deliver, they're so authentically written and authentically delivered.
Yeah, they feel like separate, real people.
Yeah. So that's like the mark of a good show, of good writing, of good direction, and good acting.
Yeah.
Is that it's so authentic and it's all fake. Of course, it's all made up Hollywood stuff. But the delivery, the writing, it's like classic. I don't want to use the word literature, but it's all delivered from a real place.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you know, you look at the Marvel movies and shows and it's all kind of fantastical, whatever.
Yeah.
Everything's so grounded. And even though this is technically a science fiction show, like, everyone's so authentic. And I keep using that word, but it's the most appropriate word I can use because everything's not raw's the wrong word because it's both raw but polished at the same time.
Yeah. It feels authentic. It has a great sense of humor and is really funny, but is also very like heavy emotionally.
Yeah.
And it just hits all those.
Every arc has its ups and its downs. Yeah. And by the end of the season, I guess, all of the characters are going somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no one really left behind.
Yeah.
Which is like that. Which is what we were saying. Who's the main character? I don't know. Who's your favorite? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because everyone's going places.
I guess like we're talking about how great the writing is, just in terms of the characters, and I want to mention two things. One, the writing is also great in terms of the science fiction.
Yeah, and we're barely scratching the surface.
Yeah, and this is only the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, just in terms of like, what does it mean to cut out an entire section, like
Of your
8
life,
hours
yeah.
of your life, and like not know anything about what's going on,
Yeah.
and how does that affect you? And like, is that person a separate person?
Yeah. What are the rights that person has? Yeah.
Yeah, like, because we'll talk about this later. Maybe is the character Helly, like, she finds out she's the villain because in her innie version, her work version.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert again, just in case someone is listening. Don't listen any further until you've seen the show, please. Like, the whole, like, her in-work version, the innie version, is like
A completely different person.
She's lovely.
cool
Yeah.
person that you want to hang out with, and then at the end of the season, you find out she's actually the villain, who's
Helly
like,
Egan.
yeah, who's like the daughter of
The founder or
the founder
whatever,
of the
yeah.
company, who's like inserted herself as a PR stunt so that the Severance
It's
procedure
the whole
will be
corporate
like,
bullshit of like, I wouldn't do anything that
Yeah.
like
Expect
I wouldn't
my-
ask
yeah.
other people to do what I wouldn't do
Yeah.
for myself.
But
so
yeah,
it's deliberately
the fascinating thing
But
is that
yeah,
each
so-
character is essentially two characters.
exactly, and so I guess we should talk about the cast as well,
Yeah.
because
Oh, stacked is not the right word.
11 out of 10 show, 12 out of 10
yeah.
cast.
Yeah. Like, so I do like the fact that John Turturro was cast, and then they didn't know who to get for Bert, and John Turturro was like, my friend Christopher Walken would be perfect for
Yeah.
this role.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Like,
okay.
you hear about that a lot, but in this
Yeah.
case, it is so perfect.
Yeah.
And the fact that both actors were up for it, because before I started watching this show, Callum and Nathan are like, oh, it's such a great show, you should watch it. And I said, I'm going to watch it, I need time. I'll get
James's
time.
mountain of movies
Yeah.
and TV.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, don't worry, I'll watch it. And they're like, I'm like, don't say anything, I don't want to get spoiled. And they're like, we're not going to say anything, but they did say, oh, it's actually a really sweet love story.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in the way
I'm
you
like,
don't expect,
oh,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay.
You already automatically assume it's the
I'm
watching-
it'll be like Adam Scott
Yeah,
and
I'm watching the show, and
Helly.
what is Adam Scott's character, Mark?
Mark, yeah, Mark.
Yeah.
So there's Mark. I guess we should also mention that there's been like 6 or 7 weeks since the finale aired, so we're like going off like
memory,
2 months
yeah.
old memory. But like, so like Mark and Helly, it's like, oh, it's gonna be them, right?
Yeah.
And that's another actually interesting aspect, is because we don't know if Helly's in a relationship outside.
Yeah.
Mark is obviously getting over his wife's death. But then the innie versions, it's like, well, they're technically single. Are they
people, yeah.
single? Like, we
Yeah.
find out Dylan has kids. It's like,
Well,
but his innie
also, you
version-
never know if they're married, right? Because they have to take off all their jewelry and leave
Yeah.
it on the locker, so everyone is technically single inside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Because there's no way they can clue it
Yeah.
out unless they have, like, I guess,
yeah,
rings, marks, or whatever on the fingers.
yeah. But that's part of the show, is
Yeah.
like finding marks on your fingers and be like, what is this? But yeah, so like I was watching the show, and a few episodes in, I'm like, oh, so it's gonna be Mark and Helly's journey, because Helly is
The new hire,
she's the
yeah.
new hire, so she's trying to get used to the fact that she's basically a prisoner, because
Yeah.
every time she leaves, her memory,
Blanks out. It's
Blanks
like going
out.
to
And
sleep.
she just wakes up.
and then she
Yeah.
wakes up back at work,
Yeah.
and it's just like, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
And her Audi version has subjected herself to it,
Yeah.
but all the other workers have just accepted it.
Yeah, because they've all been through that phase.
Yeah.
We can assume they've
Yeah.
all had that phase of
It's,
trying to
the
escape.
stages of
And
grief,
so-
right? It's now they're at acceptance.
Yeah, and
'Cause we-
so like Mark is trying to shepherd Helly through this
the process of
process,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh yeah, this is a cool relationship. And then, but meanwhile, John Turturro's character, he's Irving, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Irv, yeah. Also, okay, there's so much to talk about. He meets Bert, who's Christopher Walken's
Who's
character.
in graphic design.
Optics and design.
Optics
Yeah.
and design, pardon me.
Yeah.
R&D.
Yeah, so they're both like older gentlemen, and they start like having like this flirty thing,
Yeah.
and I'm like, hang on a sec, did Callum and Nathan? No, and then like there's just really nice, tender moments.
They're
between
gentle
the two.
with each other. They
Yeah.
like being in each other's presence.
Yeah, and I'm like,
Let's do another question. You could be straight, but your
I was
innie
gonna
could be
say
gay.
that. I was gonna say that. I'm like, when
Yeah.
when Irving goes to see Bert on the outside and finds out he's in another gay
Yeah.
relationship, I was just like, but how? Like, does Irving? That's a good question. Like, if you have no memory of your outside
Yeah.
self,
If you have no memory of the outside world, how much of attraction or
How much of your outie flows into your innie? Yeah.
how much is it nature versus nurture, right?
I guess, but it's people who say, oh, you can't be gay. That's just a life choice. You know, you can stop
Yeah.
being gay. It's just like, but it's like,
But it's also a
gay
spectrum.
Yeah. Person would also say, but how do you know you're heterosexual?
Yeah.
It's like
It's nature.
it's something you know. So it's just like,
Yeah.
I guess if you're gay on the inside, you'd be gay on the outside.
I suppose,
But
so.
it's an interesting science
But it's-
fiction,
Yeah.
like moral conundrum.
How does
or
the
whatever.
psychology of the innie develop separate from the psychology of the outie? Yeah.
yeah.
But anyway, like, yeah, I'm like, holy shit. And then it ends, and I'm like, I see Callum and Nathan, and I'm like, one, best show ever. Two, greatest, like, most sweet. When you said love story, I didn't know
Yeah.
you were talking about the sweetest, most, like,
Yeah.
cutest old man love story.
Yeah. And like the scene again, massive spoiler alert. Bert retires, and it breaks
Yeah.
John Turturro's heart.
Yeah.
in his
Yeah,
heart.
it's such an emotional
and
scene.
because
At the going away
inside,
party.
Bert might as well be dead.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
Irving to Irving,
He
They
Bert's
no
like,
dead.
longer
you're,
exists.
you're
Everyone's-
killing him,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah, everyone's saying, "Oh, it's a good thing he's retiring,"
It's
and
like-
Irving's like, "No, you're killing him. In here, he's dead."
And he'll never,
And you'll never-
because
that,
Bert,
that part of his psychology is being
Yeah.
erased.
Bert will never come back to work, and so his innie version will never reactivate, and
he's kind
gone
of dead.
forever.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
And
Yeah.
so Irving gets upset and he says to Milchick, the office manager, I guess you'd call him,
Yeah.
like, how dare you?
Floor manager, kind
Yeah,
of guy,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's a really emotional, raw scene.
And 10 out of 10. John Turturro acting 10 out of 10.
Oh, so
like,
good.
we-
Everything's so good.
we were talking about it off air because we were like, oh, we'll talk about it another time. We won't talk about it on the show. But I'm like, John Turturro is so good in every role, even in bad movies. He's always good.
Yeah.
But in this, he
and
excels.
But he's always
Yeah.
he's always a bit different. But usually, if you think of a John Turturro performance, you think of a certain like performance. But I love this performance. Like the first time you
He
see
shines,
him,
yeah.
he's got that little mustache. He's like, hello, Mark, hello, everyone. I'm like, what is he doing? I love this. This is the best.
But it's
Hey,
also
what's it?
good-
Hello, kids. What's for dinner?
it's also
Yeah.
very good character
Hey,
development.
kids, what's for
'cause
dinner? Yeah.
At the start of the show, he's kind of reserved. He's by the book. He's
Yeah.
very protocol orientated.
Mm.
And then as he has this, we'll say, this romantic experience with Bert that's against the rules, and
Yeah.
he finds by the end of the season he learns there's more important things than just being a good worker and following the rules.
Yeah.
He starts
Yeah.
breaking the rules,
Breaking
and you see
that,
his
yeah.
character grow.
Yeah.
Becomes more of a
Well,
rebel.
all the characters.
I mean, they all have that journey, but John Turturro especially, that aspect is probably one of my favorite parts of the show.
yeah.
Yeah.
Look, we actually have more time than we usually would, which thank God for this show because I have so much to talk about. So, I mean, should we quickly one thing I just remembered. Online, the Bert and Irving couple is called Burving.
Okay.
So it's like
Burving,
hashtag Burving. I just thought that was cute. Should we do a quick roundup of the whole main cast?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So the main character is Adam Scott, who plays Mark.
That's right. In his Paul McCartney phase.
Yeah, he looks like Paul McCartney, which someone online said he looks like Tig Notaro, and I'm like, well, Paul
That's a bit
McCartney.
mean.
No,
Yeah.
but Paul McCartney now in his old age does look like a old lesbian woman. So Adam Scott does look a bit like an old lesbian woman in this show. He's got this weird Lego Man haircut. Which I can talk about because I get a weird Lego Man. If I don't cut my hair, I got a weird Lego Man haircut. So I know what that feels like. But yeah, so Adam Scott is the main character, Mark, who his Audi version, his wife has died.
Passed
Was
away.
it a car accident?
Yeah. So he's told she died in a car accident.
Yeah.
But of course, his innie doesn't know that because he's not aware of
but
it.
the reason he takes the job at Lumen is that the company.
Yeah,
name?
it's because he
Yes.
can't bear the grief.
He's like to forget his wife for 8 hours a day is like a
That's-
blessing.
Yeah,
So he has the severance procedure done.
which is inserting a chip in your brain.
Yeah, and the characters, the show's kind of told from his perspective because
Yeah.
we see his Audi version. We don't see any of the other characters' Audi versions,
Not
least
nearly
not at
as
first.
much. Yeah.
but you see both Adam Scott's, Mark's Audi version and Innie version
Yeah.
like equally. It's just like he goes to work and he like becomes Innie Mark, and then he leaves work and he becomes, and you follow, and it's like that's part of the cool thing the show does. It's like the audience knows, but Innie Mark doesn't know what Audi Mark's doing, and Audi Mark doesn't know what Innie Mark's doing, and so there's all these shenanigans where it's like
Yeah.
they're both planning different things and they
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
what each of them is doing, or like, you know, Innie Mark doesn't know that he's there because he's so
Yeah.
full of grief. But there are parts where he does feel sad and he doesn't know why.
That's the best part. See, that's why I say it's like Philip K. Dick stuff.
Yeah.
Because that's the type of stuff if someone unearthed a hidden Philip K.
Yeah.
Dick novel called Severance, this would be it. You know what I mean?
Like, it's just like, I like how John Turturro's character Irving, he has the black stuff under his fingernails. He's like,
Yeah.
what is that? And he's always tired
yeah.
and he doesn't know why.
And then he'll see like the black ink,
The black
sort of,
goo,
the
yeah.
black goo come out, and
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you don't find out it's because he's a painter who uses black paint, and he's dreaming.
but he's
or
also
whatever.
dreaming one of the hallways.
Well, that's the thing. At the end of the season, is it seems like, I'm assuming he's either staying up late because he's obsessed, or he has insomnia, or both. But it seems that the hallway he sees is the repair department or something like that, which is not introduced until the end.
Yeah.
Where you find out that Mark's dead wife is actually alive and she was sent there or whatever. It's like a whole
And she was
thing.
a therapist the whole time,
Yeah.
but you didn't know until you saw
So-
a photo of
yeah,
her like
so-
later
so-
on in
I
the show.
So the theory...
We'll talk to the way that some of the episode into the show.
I think we're going to need 4 hours instead of 2.
Yeah.
So, like, the theory at the end with Irving is that he's actually been in Lumen for much longer
Then that's
than
right.
he thinks. Like, because Irving says, "Oh, I've been with Lumen for 3 years" or something like that. But there's a theory that he's actually been there much longer, and that they erase these people's memories and just
Reset them.
them and move them to different departments, because they talk about the
some
optics and
uprising.
design, the coup,
Yeah.
and that after the coup they separated all the departments, which is why there's not a lot of people in the offices.
Yeah, all the offices are separated
Separated.
from like long winding hallways.
Yeah, and like you're not allowed to draw maps or write like
Yeah.
anything like that.
It's very Twilight Zone.
Yeah, and so there's a theory that it's just like that the people there have been there much longer than they think they have, and they were working different departments, and then there was some sort of coup or bloody uprising, and then they reset everyone's memory and move. But that's speculation for another season.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's Mark. Then there's Helly, who we mentioned.
Yep.
Who's the actress who plays Helly?
That's Brit Lower.
Yeah, because I think she's great, and I'm like, she's the only one I didn't immediately recognize.
Yeah.
And then like I only realized later she was in a show I watched called Man Seeking Woman. She played the sister. I'm like, holy shit, she's so good. She's like completely, I didn't even recognize her. But yeah, she's great. And she's like the audience surrogate because she wakes up at the start of the series.
She's new to Lumen.
And she acts like any normal person would act. It's
Freaks
like,
out.
what the fuck? You're holding me here against my will.
Can we just say how great the opening with her is when she's screaming and carrying on or whatever?
Yeah.
And like you have Mark S. and you don't
he
really
just
know who he is.
calmly-
And he's
calmly
trying his
reading.
best to
Yeah.
like kind of like
and then when you see it
what's
from
it?
his,
Introduce her.
when you see it from his perspective later in the
It's like kind of
show,
frantic.
it's you feel empathy for him, whereas when
Yeah.
he's just a voice, you're like, who's this evil person who's
Yeah, yeah.
kidnapped her? And then when you see it's like, oh, poor Mark, he's just trying to get his job done because he's the new head of the
He's just got to
department.
try. He's trying to onboard her.
What's the department? Macro data refinement.
Macro data
Macro data
refinement.
refinement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like he's been thrown in as the new head of department.
India.
Yeah, and it's just like he's
Such a
trying
great
to do
scene.
his job.
You are back on the Tuesday review, talking all things Severance. We have a bit of extra time tonight, so we're just rattling off a few of the characters and discussing their journeys through the show.
One more thing I wanted to talk about Helly was I love the fire escape sequence, which kind of sets up. It's like at the start of the show, she keeps walking through the fire entrance and then walking back in. She's like, "Why? What is happening?
Why can't I leave?"
And the audience doesn't know. It's just like
that's our first hint that there's something more sci-fi going on.
There's something. Yeah. But it's like I was, scratching my head, going like, "How does this work? Is this some sort of, portal or whatever?" But it's not until later that you realize her Audi version
is just getting up and walking back in.
Up and walking back in. I'm like, oh, that's genius.
One of the
also, there's probably someone out there being like, this happens all the time.
No, no. But in her case, she wants to be there.
Yeah.
So
one of the interesting things about this show is that the innies are physically unable to leave unless authorized to do so. So you can't leave you can't come in with messages and you can't leave with them.
You can't write anything.
So even if you scratch something on your body, it's detected and the alarms go off. So there's some type of really interesting sensor system which I guess we'll learn about further down the line. But there's a whole thing where during Helly's arc, she flat out tries to end her life to get out to escape this kind of Kafkaesque situation she finds herself in. And then when she wakes up, there's like a videotape for her to watch or whatever, and it's her Audi being like,
"You're
Helly,
not a person.
Stop doing this."
Yeah,
and I'm
like, not a real person.
That communication between Innie and Audi was really fascinating. But the fact that you can want to leave so bad, but then your Audi James will be like, "James, stop it! You have to do the Tuesday review for the rest of your life."
But it's
escape.
We're different people when we review.
With an Innie review, that's the thing is watching the show because it's an unfolding mystery. I'm like, why does she have such a hard on for being at this company?
Yeah.
Surely any other person would be like, I'm quitting. My Innie version is being tortured.
The trauma, it's not worth it.
It's not until the end we find out she knows everything that's happening to her inside. She's only there for the photo ops.
Yeah.
Literal photo ops, Milchek's. I'm like, why is he always taking photos?
Yeah.
And at the end, there's all the slideshow. But it's like, I'm like, it's like revealed that she knows what's happening to her. It's the other Severance, the other workmates that don't know. And if they did know, would they pull themselves out of the...
how well does Lumen pay, though? You know what I mean?
I'm assuming it would be pretty good.
And they don't. I'm assuming. Do they have to pay rent on? So one thing to explain about how the world works in the show, before we continue explaining the character
a lot of
lives,
the employees live on Lumen buildings.
The
whole
world,
town is
the world. It's like a Lumen-owned world that we see for the most part, right? So everyone lives. I should say Mark
it's
S.
the town. It's like the old mining towns. It's like they're built by the mining company.
Yeah, and so it's like they all live on Lumen properties. So I'm wondering, it's like, how much sway does Lumen have over these people's lives? Quite a lot, as it turns out.
Yeah. Well, that's something I was speculating, watching the show, and then you find out that Mark's neighbor is actually his boss in the company.
Yeah. And she hasn't had the operation.
And so she's spying on him outside, knowing...
she knows both versions of him.
Yeah, so there's some really good cat and mouse scenes with this too.
And I'm like, how far does this go? Is the whole town in on this? Because I thought there was going to be a reveal of everyone
a Truman
in the
Show
town,
kind of stuff.
Everyone in the town is in on it. Which
we still don't know
I
that.
think that's coming.
Yeah,
because there's the whole thing with the senator's wife who has the procedure done outside so that she doesn't have to go through childbirth.
So Anna has it when she's in the birthing building.
Yeah, and I'm like, but how far does that go? This is that's what's so great about this in terms of science fiction is it's all the places you can go, all the places you can explore. I'm going to assume, this is just another fan speculation, but at the end of the season when you reveal Audi Irving and he finds his trunk and it's got military stuff in it, and then he finds out, he finds a list of all the people who work for Lumen and their addresses on the outside.
Is he military intelligence?
That's the thing, is it's I was speculating that Lumen is actually developing the Severance technology for soldiers for the military application.
Oh.
So it's you can have a guy just murder Afghani civilians, and then turn it off. No PTSD, no nothing.
Yeah.
Or have black ops, assassinate the president
wherever,
of so
That's
and so,
interesting.
and turn it off. And it's like, well, you don't,
No memory.
Yeah, you have no memory of black ops.
So even if someone gets
secret, top
captured, they can
secret.
turn it off, and there's no information anymore.
Yeah. So it's like there's this whole other,
Application
sci-fi
for it,
thing,
yeah.
which I think they're going to explore later on. And that's what I was thinking. It's like, yeah, is the whole town kind of being controlled in this way? And yeah, how far does
that reach? Yeah.
The other last workmate, Dylan, played by Zach Cherry,
Yeah.
in the
Well,
last of the immediate cast.
Yeah, when before I watched it, I knew the main cast, but I didn't know who they played or what the show was really about. And then you guys were like, "Oh, there's a guy, Dylan. He's so funny." I'm like, "That's Zach Cherry, right?" And
Yeah, I'm
you're
like, he has big Keith.
yeah.
He has big Keith from The Office energy.
Yeah, I'm like, "Yeah, that's Zach Cherry." I knew immediately. He's so good. He's so funny in everything I've seen him in. He's so funny, and yeah, he's got that dry.
He doesn't take it too seriously.
He
Kind
takes
of.
but he does. He takes his
Again, character growth. At the start, he's very
Yeah.
irreverent.
yeah.
That's
No,
the
but
word. I guess
he
I find.
takes his job seriously because he gets rewarded.
Yeah, the waffle
Like
parties,
the
man.
whole
Yeah.
incentives, like the incentives with the erasers and the
Yeah.
finger traps,
One
which is actually this show's also a really good satire of workplace culture and the way companies treat workers.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just like, if you do well,
Infantilizing.
you'll get a pizza party.
Yeah.
It's like, please just pay us more. But we got sushi day. And it's like,
Yeah, let me go home early.
yeah.
It's interesting because there's one scene where you get to decide where you have your waffle party, and he chooses the bedroom of one of the founders.
No, he didn't. I thought that's where the waffle party takes place. I don't think he gets to choose. He gets to choose who has the waffle party.
But then some not quite naked ladies appear.
It's very Twin Peaks.
Yeah, and I was like,
but that's the thing.
what's the It's not
That's-
fully explored. I was
No,
like,
but-
so is there an implication that they pay prostitutes for workers who want to have a waffle party?
One, Severance procedure, you could do like a whole sex trafficking side plot.
Yeah.
Two, there's something going on with the company, Lumen, who it has this weird culty vibes.
Yeah.
And that's another element to the show which I love and is right up my
Like
alley.
the goats.
Yeah, it's just like there's some sort of
Yeah,
like cult thing going on where the Egans who created this company,
they're like messiahs.
Revered as
yeah.
gods,
the-
basically.
who's the founder?
Keir?
Keir Egan.
Keir
Keir,
He's
yeah.
treated like some sort of prophet.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
like,
and there's
and-
one scene or episode where they go to like the museum.
yeah,
and they
there's
just
all the statues of
Yeah.
like the Egans throughout time. But it's like the whole, and like Keir's like the work handbook is
Yeah.
treated like a Bible.
Yeah.
It's like, and John Turturro's character is always quoting the handbook. He's like, don't forget what Keir says.
Yeah.
And, characters say things like, thank Keir.
Yeah.
And it's like this whole like weird thing. It's like, if your brain only switched on when you were at work and all you knew was that the boss...
oh man, I'm this far from joining a cult. I'm not even 7.
Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's this whole like satire of workplace culture, but also a weird science fiction thing where it's like, and what is the work they're actually doing with the scary numbers? What are the scary numbers?
Yeah, so
It's
that's
like,
what I think we should actually bring up before we get too deep is what do they actually do? What's their day job? The
yeah,
character's
but
day
that's
job.
the thing. It ties into this whole cult thing where even what's Patricia Arquette's character's name?
Harmony Cobell.
Yeah, Mrs. Cobell. She has like a shrine like to the
Keir.
Egans. Yeah, to Keir. I'm like, is there like an eldritch horror thing going on?
I hope so.
I don't.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. If there is, I hope it's not just like a CGI Cthulhu monster. I hope it's
I don't
very
think
vague.
it will be. I don't think it will be. I think it'll be some type of disembodiment. I don't think it'll be eldritch
Yeah.
necessarily.
Also, the board. Speaking about that kind of weird culty horror, the
Yeah.
board. How no one really hears the board,
Yeah,
and they
Yeah.
have
No
like
one
she has like
sees
a
them.
speaker. No one sees them.
yeah,
Like, oh, the board says this. The board says that.
yeah.
So one thing I want to talk about is the scary numbers. Real
Yeah.
quick. So the work that they do in macro data refinement, which is the main department we see our protagonists in through this for the season, it's only like a small area, and they sit around.
Yeah, there's only 4 workstations,
4 work
and
cubicles,
4
yeah.
employees in that department.
And they sit around these real old timey computers, which look awesome. It's like retro
Oh,
sci-fi terminals.
Can I quickly mention, all those computers actually worked. The production design crew actually made those
A
computers so
simple
you can
program.
play the little game.
Awesome.
So the actors actually have something to do.
Awesome.
I listened to an interview with Zach Cherry where he's like, he got really into it, and he would be like slamming his keyboard, and the director would have to be like, "Can you please stop that? We're filming the like, you know, it's like
don't be so
making it-
loud."
Yeah, it's like make it. Yeah,
Yeah. See, that's one thing. Like it's so real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's not a whole lot of CG in the show. Like, because it's like the, I don't know, I'm not going to say it's cheap, right? But the way they design the sets, it's just hallways. A lot of it's just hallways, mostly empty rooms, some chairs on
Fluorescent
for lumen.
lights, yeah.
And then
But-
it gets more expensive when
yeah.
they leave, when they're shooting on locations.
I love the look of the show. The production design and costume design is really cool, and the whole like retro futuristic thing.
Oh,
Even on the outside, where people drive old cars and it's
Yeah.
not really explained, there are new cars there. Like it's set in present day, but it's just got this old.
yeah, but like I
kind
don't.
of-
At the start of the show, I had questions. I remember watching
No,
the first
yeah.
episode of the show. I'm like, is this modern day or is it like the 70s?
Yeah,
you don't
it's
see
like-
that
it's like a
many.
retro
You don't
futuristic-
see that many cell phones.
No,
they are there though.
but
Like,
they're
and
not.
there's-
But they're not
there's
like
the
ever
internet,
present.
There's
like,
laptops.
Yeah.
Like yeah, but it does have this weird retro futuristic thing. And when they're in
Lumen.
the office, it does have this really cool like old 70s or 80s ugly carpeted office fluorescent
It's great.
lights.
It's so great.
Which is great. And it reminds me of like have you guys ever heard of the back rooms?
Yes, I've seen the memes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like a kid's meme at this point,
Yeah.
but there is some weird, like really cool weird stuff.
Liminal spaces. And
Liminal
such.
spaces, yes.
Yeah.
That's
A
yeah.
space between.
It's like an unreal environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but something familiar.
Yeah.
It's like it's got this old like 80s aesthetic.
Yeah.
It's like that stuff is
Ticks
right
the
up my
boxes.
alley,
That's it. So they're in front of these terminals, and they have to. There's three buckets on the screen, and they have to look at the numbers, and a cluster of numbers will have an emotion associated with it.
Yeah.
And they have to find the scary numbers and put them in the bins.
Yeah.
And it's so weird when you like. It's,
You just scroll around the numbers until you find a cluster
until
of
it makes
them
you
that-
nervous. Yeah. And then you get rid of them, and no one knows what the numbers do or
Yeah.
where they're from
or why they have to
be
separate
deleted.
them. Yeah.
I'm like, that's genius. I don't want it to ever be explained. I want them
Yeah,
to
I hope
explain
it's-
stuff. I want them to explain enough to keep the story going.
Yeah.
Just mysteries, please.
Yeah. Unlike Lost, where you're like, they're just making this up as they go along, and then it ended, and it was just like, that was a huge waste of my time. It's like, this feels like they know what they're doing, and Dan Erickson has said he has a plan,
Yeah.
and the way this is so well done, I believe him.
Yeah.
Most times I would roll my eyes and go, yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard
sure.
that one before.
Yeah.
But it's like, I have faith in the way, in the proof is in the pudding in terms of the quality of the show.
Yeah.
And 2, in the way Ben Stiller and Dan Erickson talk about the show. It's like, it feels like people who not only know what they're doing, but who know how to make the right choices.
It's like a story that you've had in your head for like 10 years. You know, you want to tell it. It's
Yeah.
done. There's no guessing around. He knows where he's going.
Oh, yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Back to Dylan, and again, he sort of starts off, you know, sort of, I guess, happy-go-lucky, goal-orientated, but
He's
kind of
the
irreverent,
office clown, yeah.
clown. And then there's a
Sarcastic.
part where he kind of switches, when he has an experience,
Yeah.
where they turn on his switch in the real life.
The
in
overtime contingency.
the overtime
or whatever
contingency,
it's called.
yeah. Where they switch his brain on, his innie becomes his
innie wakes up on the
Yeah, in
outside.
the outside world.
Yeah.
And he sees his son.
Yeah.
And Milchick, because I guess they stole like a pamphlet from O&D or something, yeah?
Yeah,
And
the little card
a
that
little-
shows you how to kill people.
Yeah,
or
a
something.
little card that shows you how to kill people.
Yeah,
And
I was
it's
like,
never,
why do they
again,
need that?
It's never
Combat
really
techniques,
explained,
yeah, why
and
do
they
they
never
need
really
that?
bring it up again.
Yeah, and O&D is only 2 people, and then there's like a whole back room filled
Of printers
of,
and work,
filled
but
of
yeah.
more staff members.
Anyway, yeah, so Dylan's innie becomes activated in the outside world, and he sees his kid, and Milkchick is like, you weren't meant to see that.
Yeah.
But it changes his character almost fundamentally.
Yeah.
And now he's just like, who is my, like, what is my
Yeah.
kid's name? Tell me his name. Tell me about him.
Other than Helly, all the other workmates are like, it doesn't matter who we are on the outside. We're here to work.
Yeah.
Let's just enjoy ourselves here. Let's just be...
Make the best out of it,
Yeah, but when stuff like that happens, and when...
It's like opening Pandora's box.
Yeah, when
for
Bert
these people.
retires and he realizes that his innie version is going to die, and, you know, the whole start of the season is that the fact that Mark becomes the head of the department is because his previous head of the department just doesn't show up to work one day, and they say he retired, but it's like they actually don't know what happened to him, and it's just like, it triggers a change in all of them. And that's why at the end they decide to like jailbreak, I guess.
And they switch on the overtime contingency at the end again.
Yeah.
That leads to a big cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Other notable characters.
We should quickly, just because I brought up, we should mention Petey, who the head of the department, and his whole thing of like he had a reversal of the
and like an illegal kind of
procedure,
sort of much hushed about
reintegration,
a back alley operation.
Yeah, so now he remembers both his outside and inside life.
Which even staff at Lumen are kind of like, it doesn't really exist. And they don't think it's possible. Yeah. But with sort of back alley surgery.
Yeah. And even Petey, like he has
bleed, like it's like a bleed
over, and like migraine, like kind of hallucinations. He doesn't know what's a memory and what's happening. So it's like wasn't 100% successful or whatever. But then that leads,
enough to know that everything's not alright in Lumen.
And then that leads to
at least to Petey colluding with Mark.
Outside Mark, who's like, look, man, I'll help you out. You say we're friends on the inside, but I don't really know who you are. And then eventually he's like starts to be like, okay, something is going on inside. They are doing something to us. And I have to help, my inside version or whatever. And that also brings up there's like an anti-Severance movement.
As there should be.
Yeah. And at the start of the show, they're just like a bunch of, like young people with pickets, but then like at the end, there's, I can't remember her name. There was a scientist who used to work for Lumen doing the procedure. And now she's like, no, there's like a whole underground movement that's actually a serious thing.
Yeah. And, it's
you know what I mean, when they kill the
like a resistance kind of thing to Lumen.
But there's so many great ideas. That's a great thing about like great science fiction is like
that's why I feel it has an essence of like Arthur C. Clarke, Philip K. Dick, because it's not just one great idea. It's like sowing a whole field of science fiction ideas encapsulated in the one story.
If I say to you, it's about people who they don't remember who they are when they go to work or whatever, you go, oh yeah, that sounds okay. But then it's like actually watching the show, it's like, oh, they can do so much with this.
That's right.
And just in the first season, they've shown all the things they can hint at. And like I'm so excited for what they're going to do next because there's so much potential.
And just the direction. It's like, I get like, there's a lot of David Lynch in it. I would argue instead of some direction scenes, of it, like the dance party.
Yeah, the goats.
The jazz. No, like the jazz scene.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Like, oh my God.
Defiant jazz.
Yeah.
Milkchick is like that guy is you want to be friends with him.
He's scary. He scares you.
No, but he rides that line. That's what's such a great performance.
It's because he's a nice guy.
Can you check the actor's name?
He's a nice guy,
but you don't want to cross him. That's what the actor said.
Trammell Tillman.
Yeah. You know he's a nice guy because he's employed to be a nice guy.
I saw an interview with I read an interview with the actor, and he's like, he's a nice guy, but he's not someone you want to cross.
Yeah,
he's got that energy where it's just like, oh, he's being accommodating.
There's a threatening aura to him.
Yeah, the aura, yeah,
and
also the fact that the physicality of it, of like.
Because he's fit,
yeah, he's like very like the way he moves is like athletic,
calculated, yeah.
and he's got the white short sleeve work shirt and tie.
Yeah.
And he's just like a very kind of T-1000-esque.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you know this guy could like run you down.
Yeah.
Like efficient killer predator.
Yeah, compared to the relatively unfit guys who work in
And
MTR.
everyone else is just like an office
Typical
slog.
office worker, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this show is like the
Dylan
UK
once said, no chance.
Yeah, it's the UK Office, but if it was a Philip K. Dick science fiction, like, hell...
Hellscape, yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. Everything about it.
I want to talk about one reviewer specifically, is how genius it is to not show Mark's wife at all until like closer to the end of the season.
That's not unusual. Any show where you have to reveal a certain character is actually another character or
but the
whatever.
way they do it, like the way they keep talking about the wife. It doesn't feel cheap. No, the way they keep talking about it, they keep bringing her up, but the way it's done is like you think Mark doesn't have photos of her lying around because he's grieving, whatever. So as far as I was aware, she wasn't going to be in the show. It's just the reason people don't show her is because it helps Mark that way.
I was thinking, I'm like, well, it can't be Helly, right? That's too obvious. It's like that would be a like tragic kind of, beautifully tragic thing to do is like have a love story between two people on the inside who on the outside had lost each other. You could play it that way, but I kind of like how, it's like, I was kind of like, well, who is it? And it's like, wait, it was Miss Casey the whole time.
Hang on. Psychologist, yeah.
And it doesn't feel cheap, and the way it's revealed, that's what's so great about this show, right? The way it's written, every episode has a reveal, has a cliffhanger that leads into another one, and then it ends on the big cliffhanger of Mark realizing his wife is alive on the inside and telling his sister she's alive just before the Severance reactivates and he forgets. And it's just like most shows I would flip my table and be like, this is bullshit. But this show, I'm like, it's not frustrating at all. This is the only show I can think of where all the cliffhangers and all the unanswered questions aren't frustrating.
It's like, I'm keen, it's like, I'm looking forward to it, but like, they can take their time.
Shows like Lost was so frustrating because you could tell they were just making stuff up and there were more questions than there were answers. And the more things they tried to answer, the more questions I had.
I think...
Whereas this show's the opposite.
The thing with this show is there are clues or there's nothing being constructed midway through just to be a tease.
Yeah, they don't just make stuff up halfway through.
There's nothing artificially written later on just to keep you guessing. Like everything is there in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it just extrapolated.
All the pieces are there.
The pieces are there.
You just have to put them together.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's
and
not
that's
like
the fun thing about puzzles. It's like all the pieces are actually there. They're not tricking you by thinking the pieces are there, and then you put the puzzle together and there's like 4 missing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, what the hell is
it's
this?
Not
I want
like
my money back.
It's not Lost where it's like, there's a polar bear, or like whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's like, no, it's grounded. Yes, there are twists, turns, ball-breaking cliffhangers, but you're not, it's all there.
Yeah. And that's another thing about like great science fiction is that yes, you can have more fantasy, kind of fantastical science fiction, but it does have that element of like, I can see how these things work. It's not just it's not just magic.
Yeah, exactly.
There is there is an element like of reality.
Yeah.
What else can we talk about? There's so much to talk about.
The book, The Brother-in-Law.
Oh, yes.
And the lack of culture inside the any world, right?
Yeah, the lack of outside
they're not allowed to have any
messages from the outside world.
Yeah, they're not allowed to have any books or, I guess, movies or pop culture or anything. And, like, if you're on the inside, you know what a movie is, but you've never seen one.
That's right, yeah.
It's like, what car keys are and how to you've driven, but you've never done it before.
It's like you have the knowledge of your Audi of the outside world, but you lack
the specifics.
you lack the context of it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So you like someone can say Jurassic Park, and you'll be like, yeah, I know Jurassic Park. Well, it's like you can't describe the plot, but you
But
know
they
it
wouldn't even know. I don't think
They wouldn't even know
They
what
wouldn't
it
even
is.
know. They'd know what a movie is, what
Yeah.
a movie theater is.
Yeah,
But they
They don't know pop culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Fair.
and there's that great bit at the end of the season when Irving, he's out, any version is out activated on the outside, and he gets in the car, and it's like he knows how to drive, but he's never done it before.
Yeah.
So you can tell just by the subtle performance of like he's a bit unsure, but he knows what he's doing because his Audi version assumedly drives
Muscle
every
memory,
day.
yeah.
So it's this cool thing.
Subconscious versus conscious.
Yeah. And yeah, so they're not allowed to have anything. And I do like there's that secret thing of Mark making a map
Yeah.
to figure out like how to get to optics and design
Yeah.
and where the other hallways lead and how to get, there's the goat room. It's like, why are there goats there? Someone asked Dan Erickson, it's like, do you know what the goat's for? He's like, don't worry, I know what the goats are for.
Excellent. Let's see. Another answer would be what goats.
Yeah. But yeah, like, so they're not allowed to have any
Any culture from the outside world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark's, his Audi version has a sister who's married to
An amateur self-help writer.
self-help guru.
Yeah.
And
called
everyone
Rick
thinks
and-
he's a tosser in
Yeah.
real life
Yeah.
in the
And
outside world. Right?
Honestly, I love that guy. He's hilarious.
Yeah.
And his character is... What's so great about his character is like, he's kind of lovable,
Yeah.
but he's like... Yeah, all his philosophy is
Bargain basement.
nonsense.
Yeah.
It's like garbage. It's just like... It's all silly.
Yeah. And so,
Like, what do you call it? Pseudo-intellectual.
Yeah, So Miss Cobell
obtains the book
obtains the book,
that Rickon's writing.
and she takes it into the office for some reason, and they find it.
Does she?
She does.
Yeah, that's how it gets in there, because you can't bring in
Patricia, because
people-
she can take stuff in.
Yeah, people who have the severance procedure can't bring in outside.
No, I know, but I
Texts.
don't remember her bringing in. I don't remember.
She
'cause
took it
Mark-
off his doorstep.
Yeah. Remember, she was peeking.
Oh, she
Yeah.
had it when. Yeah, she.
Yeah, Rickon left it on the doorstep.
Rickon gifts Mark his
Yeah.
new book.
Yeah.
She's
steals it.
snooping
Yeah.
because she's the neighbor. She steals it, goes to the office,
And then
le-
Mark
accidentally leaves it in the office,
And they
And-
find it.
and then yeah,
And it's
Mark
like a
steals
new
it.
holy text. And it's
I love
amazing.
it. And like they're reading it like it's the Bible, like it's
in
this
secret, like it's a hidden,
illuminating-
it's hidden
Yeah.
scripture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like he's reading it in the bathroom, and so no one
And
like
everyone,
find out.
everyone thinks they're the only person who knows about it.
Yeah.
So everyone's like trying to
And I
do
love-
this secret reading.
Like he's reading these really silly statements. Actually, maybe Google if there's a list of some of them because they're really just
Yeah.
goofy. But you're kind of like to them, to the innie person who's never experienced.
yeah, to them, it's profound.
Yeah, it's just like, and it also ties into the whole like workplace satire that I
well,
like.
it's called the you are.
The
Yeah,
you are,
you,
yeah.
you are. Yes. That kind of sums it all up, really.
I think it's the last episode is titled "The We Are." I like that. The episode titles are really good.
Well, like, what does camaraderie mean? Is one of them. Most linguists agree it comes from the Latin camera, which means a device to use to take a photograph.
Yeah, so he's just making stuff up that sounds.
The best photographs are not of individuals, but of groups of happy friends who love each other deeply.
Like,
And it's just like stuff like that.
yeah, it's just like goofy, like silly that most people would just
Yeah.
laugh at.
but
this
because
guy.
they have no frame of
and
reference.
yeah, and Audi Mark thinks Rickon is a bit of a tosser, like he thinks he's full of it. But Innie Mark finds this book, who he doesn't know is actually by his goofy brother-in-law, and is just like, holy crap, this has like opened up a whole another world. And
And when they get switched on at the end, they're at a party, and Innie Mark's like, oh, he's
he's like a fanboy.
Yeah, can I say, there's one moment in the show
that whole party scene.
oh my god. And I think the
Genius.
baby goes missing. And,
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god.
That was great.
There's one moment
And
in the
Miss
show
Cobell's there, and he's like trying not
avoid,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
where Mark says out loud, he reads from the book out loud. Our job is to taste free air. Mark reads. Your so-called boss may own the clock that taunts you from the wall, but my friends, and here's when Zach chimes in. He goes, "The hour is yours." It's like they're reading a secret scripture together.
Yeah, it's like,
It's
and
so
they
funny.
realize they've both been secretly reading it. Oh my god! But it ties into what I love about the whole workplace satire thing of like, to these people, even the most silly, like pseudo intellectual bull crap is actually helping them to realize that they're being exploited by a corporation.
It gives them a sense of power.
Yeah.
Talking about being exploited by a corporation, one thing we haven't talked about is the punishment room, the break room.
Yes.
That's
was
an
great.
interesting concept because I still don't quite know how they're punished.
It's some sort of psychological torture where
Yeah.
you're forced to read and reread
A
the
prepared
same
statement.
prepared apology statement over and over again for hours.
But there
upon
obviously
hours
there's
upon
some other
hours.
sci-fi technology involved because they got like a machine and this
I guess
sort
it's
of,
like
Put
not-
your hand on the
I
machine.
guess it's
Yeah.
not. It's like a lie detector where you put your hands on there and it detects your thing.
yeah. But I feel like there's more involved in it though because people come out broken.
Yeah, they do.
Well, if you had to do it, you would be broken because like the words become meaningless. But if you have to keep doing it, it's like
Yeah.
they have to keep doing it until they mean it.
Yeah.
And it's just like sometimes it's like 8 hours or whatever goes past, and their outside version doesn't know it's happening to them,
Yeah.
and their inside version, I guess, just like thinks it's a normal part of
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't know any better.
yeah. And I especially love that it comes into play at the end when Helly, who's been defiant this whole time, realizes she's the villain of the whole story
Yeah.
and says the apology into the mirror and actually means it because
Yeah.
she's like, oh no, I just found out I'm the devil, but I'm not because it's not me because
Yeah.
I'm the innie version.
Yeah.
But also I have to atone for my sins for my outside version, which is another interesting moral
Oh,
sci-fi conundrum.
please go watch it.
Paying
Even if
for
you
the
got
sins-
completely spoiled.
Paying for the sins you
Yeah.
commit when you're not even conscious.
Yeah.
Like,
It's,
where does that liability start and end? You
Yeah.
know? It's like a philosophical question as well as a sci-fi one. As
it's like
presented
it
in the
wasn't
show.
her who committed the sins, but it's like it's up to her if she wants to be a good
To pay
person
for
to pay for it, and which could mean fighting herself or killing
Yeah.
herself. You know,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's like this whole Star
It's
Trek
madness. Yeah.
ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
It's great.
Oh man.
What I mean,
What else is there?
I let me go through some of my notes that I took while watching the show.
We'll go to a quick break.
Okay, and then we'll come back.
We'll be back right after this. You are back on the Tuesday review, talking all things Severance. Have we got anything else to talk about?
Well, this is the miracle. In thinking we had longer, we actually did a pretty nice job of getting things
In mostly
done.
an hour. Yeah.
Like I'm still mad about the Batman review where we rushed and I didn't get to talk about all the things. Like I was just like, I watched Lego Batman. I didn't even get to talk about how I watched Lego Batman. How much I love that movie.
See, but that's
still
the whole
mad.
thing, right? When you're stressed, you rush and you lose
forget
your
things,
composure.
you skip
and,
notes.
You know, we had a bit extra tonight, and we pretty much got it within the hour.
Yeah, but since I did take all these notes thinking we were gonna, not be COVIDed out of episodes, I'll just go through them and since I got them here. Oh yeah, like I said, the great workplace satire, and it's kind of like The Office. It's a great workplace comedy.
Yeah.
But I think you guys would agree. It's also like it's a good, like the friendships you have at work are different to the friendships you have outside of work.
Yeah.
And the show deals with that interestingly in a sci-fi kind of context because it's like they only have each other.
Yeah.
They only exist with each other.
Well, there's a great quote at the end of the UK office where Tim says as a narrator that the thing about working at an office is that you spend 12, I think it's like 8 hours a day or whatever for years, and in some cases you see those people more than your family, which in the case of Severance is 100% of the time.
I mean, they may as well be family.
Yeah, that's
exactly.
what I was going to say. The interesting thing about the office place in Severance is that they are, for all intents and purposes, just family because
Yeah.
they only have, like you said, they only have each other.
Yeah.
They don't have anyone
And
else.
it's something that we've all joked about because, you know, we've worked in retail and I work in office now. And it's like, we've joked about off air. It's like, you know, your work wife or your work husband. It's like someone you're close to at work, but it's like they're not, it's like a different kind of relationship. I just think it's interesting that the way the show
deals with it.
deals
yeah.
with that, you know. We mentioned Miss Casey, who's an Australian actress. I forget her name.
She was in Altered Carbon.
Yeah.
Dechen.
Dechan, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Hard to
know how
pronounce.
to pronounce it. Yeah, but she's is it the wellness center?
She's like a trip to the wellness center. Yeah, she's
Yeah,
like a
it's like
therapist
if you're
and tells you good things about your Audi.
if you're any
That's
yeah,
what bullshit too.
no, but it's not. That's the thing is if you rewatch the show, she's actually saying things that are true,
Oh, is she?
but in a cryptic way. Like when
Oh.
she says to Irving, like your Audi enjoys the sound of radar. You're like, that's very vague. What does that mean? And then you find out at the end his dog is named Radar.
Oh,
There's all these like little things. But that's the thing is like if your innie is having trouble at work, you
Yeah.
go to see the boss, Miss Cobell, and she'll be like, you have to go to the wellness center and get your stuff in order. And then you go to the wellness center and Miss Casey, like, you know, puts on like ambient
soothing
music.
music,
yes,
yeah.
and there's like a tree and it's all very, you know, new
very,
agey.
very corporate.
Yeah, corporate slash
Corporate wellness.
yeah. And yeah, she reads nice things about your Audi, which is another interesting aspect is because they don't know what their Audis do. They like to speculate.
Yeah.
Like Dylan is always like,
my Audi does this.
my Audi
yeah.
like gets with all these MILFs, but I feel bad about their husbands. So it's like, and it's just like,
yeah.
like they're just making this and Irving especially like has like, because he loves the company so much, but he longs to know what is happening outside.
Yeah.
And then when you find out like he's some sort of tormented artist who's potentially been brainwashed for years and potentially been part of a military experiment, if my theories are correct, like it's this whole other thing. Yeah, and also I like the idea of Miss Casey is part-time. So most of the other workers, I guess you show up at 9 and you leave at 5 or whatever, because their memory, you know, they're always there. But I guess that would be interesting if you're like a contract or part-time. It's just like you get a call, you got to come in, and then you go in for a couple of hours, you don't know what happened, and you come out and your memory's
Gone,
not
yeah.
there. And also the fact...
That's not as bad.
Yeah,
In a
no,
way.
but it's an interesting other
It's
sci-fi...
like you lose like 5 hours a week.
Yeah, it's another interesting sci-fi thing to explore.
Yeah.
Like, just the fact that Milchick showed up to real Dylan, Audi Dylan's house and was like, we need to take care of something. And Audi Dylan was like, okay. Like, because he knew, like, the company, but he obviously didn't know what they were going to do. Like, it's all...
Yeah.
There's so much to explore, so much
Yeah.
cool stuff. What else? I guess we kind of mentioned the board
Yeah.
and how
The faceless
you
men
don't
who run
see
the
them.
Very
women
control.
who run-
Like
Yeah,
video
like a
game
video
control.
game. Yeah, and also like we see the creepy museum with all the wax dummies of like the previous Egan members. I guess the CEO directorship of the company gets handed down throughout the bloodline of the
Yeah.
Egans. And for the last 100 or so years, I can't remember how long. And the current CEO, James Egan, which we find out at the end, is actually Helly's father. And then there's a theory that with the severance procedure, like previous directors are in the one body.
Yeah.
So you like, you know, like James says to Helly, like, you know, you'll be present at my revolving or something like that. And so,
Yeah.
so you don't know what that means, but it could be his chip going into Helly's head and her becoming the new director of
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Fascinating, yeah.
Cool sci-fi stuff that I love.
Because like memories are in the chips.
Yeah, who
Yeah,
knows?
that
who
way
knows?
somehow,
We
who
don't know.
knows?
Like,
Yeah.
we don't know if they're inserting extra chips. We don't know if there's a Severance
Yeah.
Plus procedure.
And he says to her, I think canonically they say she's 30 years old. He says to her, when you were a kid or a child and I brought home the first Severance chip prototype, I'm like, so this program's only 25 years old. But, could there have been previous versions?
Yeah, who knows?
Military application. It's like
especially if Lumen is alien in origin. Like if you go down that route, it could be like recovered tech.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
UFO, crashed UFO.
Yeah, and then they find chips in there or something. Who knows?
I like the idea of the optics and design. Their whole thing is like just to put up different paintings that are like super vague and kind of threatening and undisturbing. But everyone, like Irving.
It's the only sense of culture you have in the place.
Yeah. Again, it's something new to look at.
Yeah, and they find the violent one, the coup.
The coup, yeah.
And it's like, what is this? Did this actually happen? That was cool. And just the town of Kier itself, like named after the founder. That's interesting. The whole scene with Petey's funeral where they're playing Metallica.
Yeah.
And Miss Cobell is trying not to get caught while she's like digging the chip out of his head. I'm like, this is like perfect
Tense.
Filmmaking.
Yeah. It's such a tight thriller at times.
We mentioned Helly hanging herself, which is really great scene.
Yeah, really heavy.
Like, and the fact that like at that point in the show, you're like, why isn't her Audi doing something?
Yeah.
Like, surely, like, so great. I think that's it. Music dance experience.
Yeah, the music dance
the
experience.
waffle party. Yeah. So Dylan is obsessed with doing good work so that he can get the incentives, like the rewards.
Yeah.
And it's usually just little bits of crap.
Yeah.
But they're innies, so they don't really have anything else. But the coveted prize is the waffle party, which you don't know what it is until the end.
Yeah.
And at the end, you find out it's like you go to Egan's the replica of Egan's house or whatever, which is really cool. That it's like it's like a house built indoors.
Yeah.
And then you go and you eat the waffle, and then you go to the bedroom, and then there's these dancers come in, like provocative, half naked, but they're all wearing masks.
Yeah.
And I've heard like the theory or whatever, if you want to call it that, is like each mask represents a staff member. So one looks like Helly, one looks like Mark, one looks like Irv, one looks like Dylan. That's super weird. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what it is, but I love it. When you get the 100% number at the end, you get that little animation. It's like, you did it.
Yeah.
And
they met the quota.
And then Kier like flies away, and he's like, I have to go.
What are they doing?
It's so weird. Like,
are they killing people?
Because there's the whole cult aspect, and it's like, there's the goats. Is like, is it sacrifice? Is it human sacrifice? Is there a satanic element to it? Yeah. Because there's the whole waffle party dances. I'm like, there's some sort of temptation. Is there some sort of, I think you get a whip. Didn't Dylan get a whip during the waffle party? So it's like,
I believe so.
Is it self-flagellation, or do you fight off the temptations and prove your worth? I love it.
That could be straight out of the Key Handbook. That's
exactly
fascinating.
like it's just a whole like. I love how they've created this whole religion based on little hints that we're basically just making this up in terms of inferences and theories.
But there's enough little breadcrumbs to get people to explore this in their minds until the next season comes out and we learn more, hopefully. But I hope that after the show's done, we can buy Key's Handbook, because that'd be awesome.
Oh, that's what I wanted to mention. Merch, please.
Yeah.
I want my Lumen.
I want my
mug
bobblehead
and chain.
Ben Stiller, please.
I want the bubble. I want the little. You could get the little statuette of yourself or whatever.
Oh, the bobblehead. Yeah. I have seen online people make their own stuff, and there are there's the Reddit community and like the Twitter
I'm
community.
off Etsy.
That's
like there were giveaways. Like someone made stuff and was like, I'll give away this stuff. But we need official.
I want
merch.
a Key Handbook.
I want I want my Lumen keychain.
You can get Lumen mugs.
Are they real though, or are they Etsy?
It's
Ours
Etsy.
is all Etsy. Yeah, but I guess it's better than nothing. So it's already been renewed for season 2. Thank God.
Stickers.
Ha, nice. Renewed for season 2. Like I said, Dan Erickson says he has a plan. I trust Ben Stiller's instincts with this. Originally when Dan Erickson brought his script and they worked on it together, and they they talked about how they refined it and changed things, and how Ben Stiller it was his idea to do certain things in the show. So I'm really
They
looking
obviously
forward.
have a shared vision, yeah.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to what happens next, because
Outstanding show, yeah.
not
that many shows like it around ever.
I have nothing bad to say about it, and
No.
this is coming from me who has something bad to say about everything.
If you listen to this show, you know that most of the time we complain.
And even
But
on
not
shows,
about this.
even on shows and movies that we absolutely love, there's always a thing of like,
Well, like
I
take the
wish-
Batman, for example, where we enjoyed the Batman, but
that
there-
movie has a lot of problems. I'm
That's what
talking
I'm
about
saying,
I can't think of an example right now, but there's got to be.
Even Cobra Kai, we love that, but it's cheesy.
I'd say that's a plus though.
Well, not. Oh, yeah. Okay.
I'd
Yeah,
say that.
never
I'd say
mind.
that's a good thing.
You have a
But,
point, though.
There are
this-
things where we're like, we love this. This is so great, but I wish they did this. I wish they did that. I wish
Yeah.
they could have had a bit more money here.
This is
I
a
wish
perfect
this actor
product,
were- This I honestly don't
it's
have
the very
anything bad
rare.
to say.
It's the very rare 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, we've talked about before with TV shows, they're so ephemeral and there's they could be cancelled at any time. Because it's not on Netflix, thank God,
Oh, thank God.
because we're hoping that they keep this up at least
As
well,
long as they
until-
need
until,
it. Yeah.
I mean,
until it-
Apple hasn't really
tells its
cancelled
story.
much, if anything, up to now.
but it's still new. All
It's
their
still new,
shows
yeah.
are only on their second season.
Yeah.
I think there's only a few that are just starting to get their third season, so it's still early days. But yeah, it seems like they're going for more of a HBO quality over quantity, and hopefully they see this through, because it'll be this will be the biggest loss if they didn't get
Oh,
to.
they won't cancel it.
Yeah, and hopefully they.
Especially since Ben Stiller's buying, it's not just some production companies like, here we made this. It's a big name. Big names are involved and behind
But yeah,
it.
that doesn't really mean it's guaranteed, and it also doesn't guarantee that the quality of the show will continue. But just based on what we have now, I'm very hopeful that
Yeah.
they know what they're doing and that they'll keep up the good work. Because how many shows where the last season has just crapped itself?
Most of them.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh, they just rushed the ending. It's like, oh, that was a waste of however many years.
Or
looking at
you get
you,
a How
Game
Met
of
Your
Thrones.
Mother, and they don't rush the ending, but they
But it's
drag
still
out
bad,
what
yeah.
should be one episode into a season,
Yeah.
and you want to choke someone.
Yeah, exactly. So TV shows are this weird thing where it's just like, this could all end in flames.
Yeah.
But at this moment, I'm feeling pretty good about it, and I'm
Yeah.
someone who never feels pretty good about anything. So
Hey, we had a good weekend.
yeah. Oh yes, the Nazis lost the election. Thank God, because I was getting prepared for the worst. So yeah, best new show in a long time.
in a long time, yeah.
Words we never thought we'd say. Thank you, Apple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like Apple products, but
Tim Apple delivers.
Apple TV Plus, quality streaming service.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
Look, I think that's all the time we got.
yeah.
for
I've rambled
tonight.
enough. I think this episode arguably went too long.
we
Weird.
thought we're gonna need all the
Yeah,
hours.
I was like, we're gonna
Yeah.
need more.
No, we were pretty comfortable.
Yeah, it's just good to have
yeah.
something like. It's good to have something positive to talk about.
Yeah, I know.
because usually it's just like we need 3 hours to talk about something we hate and yell about
The
it.
next positive review: Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers.
Have you watched it? I haven't watched it.
I'm about half an hour in.
Okay,
Surprisingly dark. You'll dig it.
okay, I might watch it.
Okay.
I'm not sold on
Okay,
it.
all right. We'll discuss it off air.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah.
You can
If you listen to this and you haven't seen Severance, damn you to hell, watch it.
Doesn't matter about the spoilers.
You'll
It's still
enjoy
good.
it. You'll
Still
enjoy
watch
it.
it.
Trust me, you'll enjoy it.
Yeah. Thank you for listening, everyone. We really appreciate it. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the socials.
Oh, speaking of Apple, the Apple link on our Anchor page is fixed. So if you go to our Anchor homepage and under the Where to Listen tab, it'll have a link to Spotify, a link to Apple, and an RSS link. And now if you click that Apple link, it's the new shiny
It's
one.
the current one. Yeah, we're in the process of removing the old one, but
the
now
old one
for-
shouldn't be a problem.
It shouldn't be a problem now.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this,
yeah.
you found a way to
Exactly,
listen anyway.
Yeah, thanks everyone. We'll be back next week, God willing, COVID willing. I should say. Thank you. Good night.
Adios, cousins.
Adios, cousins.